All right, so we got some breaking news here, Tyler. A major trade has gone down. Diontae Johnson is headed out of Carolina, a guy they just traded for this offseason. He is headed to the Baltimore Ravens. In kind of a seismic move here, obviously in real football, the Ravens acquire a really good receiver, at least by the fantasy community. They thought he's a really good receiver. But a good receiver here to complement this offense. They've needed another receiver to help out Zay Flowers. And obviously, the Carolina Panthers are fully embracing the rebuild here. Some fantasy implications, though, for this trade, as Diontae Johnson was kind of teetering around that wide receiver 2 range, wide receiver 3 range, depending on who was starting in Carolina. And Zay Flowers had really emerged here as a wide receiver 3 for most teams, back in wide receiver 2. There's a lot with this Ravens offense because we know the tight ends play a role. We know Lamar Jackson plays a role. We know Derrick Henry plays a role. Zay Flowers has emerged. Rashad Bateman's come on over the last couple weeks. Where does this leave Diontae Johnson when it comes to fantasy? Because I think he's going to be a hard wide receiver 3 to trust.
Yeah, I don't like this move at all for fantasy football purposes. Obviously, as a Steelers fan, I don't like it because I think it helps out the Ravens. This is just a good move for the Ravens. And I was trying to think of destinations because they said that Diontae was going to move. He was definitely going to be traded, they said, before the deadline. Now, I was thinking of destinations. Honestly, I never thought of the Ravens. I'm kind of surprised that they did this move. I wasn't thinking of it at all. But it's a good move for them for real life football, like you said. For fantasy, I just think this kind of a downgrade for honestly everyone. I think it's obviously a downgrade for Diontae. Like you go from being the number one wide receiver, and sure, Panthers weren't very good, and there was weeks where he had some really good weeks there, and then others some dud weeks. But I liked it a lot going forward for him on that team just because he's a clear-cut number one wide receiver. So you go from that situation now to a Baltimore Ravens wide receiver room where I think he's more of like the 1B to Zay's 1A. I think there's kind of like a split here. But the biggest problem for the Ravens is just it's not a high volume passing offense. It's a low volume passing offense. It's a run first football team. It's a very good football team where they're not going to be in a whole lot of shootouts. I know they were this week, but this is a team that we've seen win very convincingly in some of these games. So I just think it's kind of a downgrade because, say what you will, he is a guy who earns targets at a high rate. He's going to take away some of the targets from Zay Flowers, even Mark Andrews, who's been playing a little bit better as of late. I just think this downgrades kind of everybody, and it's just situation that I don't like at all. I don't like this.
It downgrades everybody in the passing game, right?
Like in the passing game.
In the passing game, because I think Lamar.
I think it upgrades Lamar a little bit.
I think they both benefit, right? Even the run game does, because now you have other options in the passing game. It's going to open up even more lanes for Derrick Henry, who's on a career pace right now to have shit. It looks like he could have another 2,000-yard year the way he's headed. But this passing game, man, it makes everybody a little bit more volatile than they already were. We had seen Zay Flowers show peaks and then valleys. And we've seen Mark Andrews start the season off slow and then look good. The opposite for Likely. Started off really strong in game one, and then he's just been super inconsistent along the way. I think we just continue to get that now with the guy in Diontae Johnson who, all the metrics and analytics support him being a good player for this team. But I think, unfortunately, he's player that's tough to trust in fantasy lineups and probably better traded off your roster than kept on your roster. He's gonna be one of those players you're questioning yourself every week, like, do I start him? Do I not? And it's a weird move for this Ravens team because I kind of was thinking you talked about it. It was one of the last places you expected him to go. It's just like they already don't use their receivers like that. Yeah. So it was curious.
But they didn't really even give up anything.
They didn't give up. Yeah, it was a 5th-round pick that they got, and they gave up a 6th. So it was damn near a free play. But Zay Flowers had been a really, really strong piece in the passing game for a lot of for fantasy teams too. Seeing 8 to 10 targets in those peak weeks. Are you starting Zay Flowers? Where would you put Zay Flowers amongst receivers? He's wide receiver 16 right now.
Yeah, I would move him outside my top 20. I don't know where exactly. I haven't done my rankings yet.
He really might even push out further than that, huh?
Yeah, I would say
how volatile he is.
Yeah, I didn't like. I like Zay a lot, and I guess I didn't really like him a whole lot heading into the season. I understand the upside that he possesses, but once again, it's kind of like what you said. It's a volatile situation because it's not a team that is going to sit back there and 35. It's never going to push for high volume passing numbers. It's not. This is not how the Ravens are built. It's not what their identity is. It's not a team that wants to be in these situations. It's a team that hopefully they throw the ball 20 times a game and they're able to just run the football. That's just what this team wants to do. And we talk about this a lot too. Like, we're getting to the colder weather months, especially in Baltimore AFC North football, where they play the Pittsburgh Steelers twice. There's going to be a lot of these grinded out type of games. So Zay Flowers is just a guy that I don't even. I think a lot of smart fantasy gamers won't even want him. I would probably try to sell if I could, but I just don't know who would really want him or what you could get for him. Maybe you could get him kind of as a throw in to upgrade at a certain position. Potentially, you could do something like that. That's how I would look at it right now. I don't know. Me personally, I don't like it.
Yeah, he's got 4 games over 18 points, 4 games under 6 points. And it's like, what do you do with a player like that? It's just, he's such a tough player.
And then then you add a guy like this in the mix. This is, it's going to hurt him. Like, it's going to hurt him. There's no way around it. It just takes limited targets that were already in this offense out of the offense.
And Lamar goes, to me, Lamar is even more of a threat now, obviously with the run and passing game. Getting a guy like Diontae Johnson, it'll help his numbers out. And I think you talked about this being a running football team. I think they want to be a running football team. They just don't want to be one dimensional. And I think some of these teams in the playoffs will play these guys like, beat us with the pass. And getting a Diontae Johnson in real football it gives them the opportunity to do that, especially because they'll be going up against Pittsburgh twice here coming up. Like you mentioned, they still have 2 games left against Pittsburgh and probably could play them in the playoffs too. It's good to have a guy like Diontae Johnson that knows that team in and out. Another news item, Tyler, what about the Carolina side of this? We didn't even cover the Carolina side. Obviously, Diontae Johnson off of Carolina now opens up a lot of things. Xavier Legette is probably the biggest beneficiary of this. Obviously, the Carolina Panthers are embracing the rebuild here. Adam Thielen is on the 21-day practice window right now. He's in the 2nd week of that. So they're probably going to get him back here in the next week or 2, unless he's shipped out as well, which could be a thing here with this team embracing the youth movement. Obviously, Xavier Legette is now a wide receiver 3 with upside on any given week, maybe even a wide receiver 2, depending on who the starting quarterback is. But is there anybody else on this team that you're looking at as potential options as far as like flex-worthy plays or pickups?
So the problem is what do they do at the quarterback position? Are they going to now keep Bryson? Are they going to go back to Dalton? I don't know what they're going to do here.
It sucks because he got in that car accident, and it's like we don't know this. They haven't really at least I haven't heard anything about it. They haven't talked about like the severity of it, like if Dalton's out for a month or if he's out for just last week. And then Bryce Young, they want to see him develop too.
Yeah. So I don't know what to fully anticipate here. It's kind of thing, because if they go back to Bryce Young, man, we already know, we've seen this. Like, Bryce is terrible. So I wouldn't
grow though,
I understand. Hey, I think it's the smart move for this team. It's just for fantasy, I just don't like it. It's not a good, like, I'd rather have Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, at least. I understand for relay football, it doesn't make sense because Andy Dalton is not the future. Like, he just maybe helps you win a couple of games here down the stretch, but like, you want to lose because you want to have a better pick. So, but for fantasy football, like, Andy Dalton helps us, right? He'll at least be able to get the ball to his receivers. With Bryce Young, we've already seen this, so it just depends on who the quarterback is. If it's Bryce Young going forward, I don't want any of these guys, honestly. If I had to pick one, maybe Xavier Legette. I think another guy that's really interesting, Jalen Coker, because Jalen Coker, like in the pre-draft process, the underlying metrics for him were really interesting because he commanded a really, really high target share in college. Now, he went to Holy Cross, and Holy Cross is, I don't even think, a D1 school or D1 Division A or whatever it is school. Yeah. So it's not like, but the underlying metrics were good. He's an early declare. I want to say he's only 22 or just turned 22. Maybe I'm wrong about that as well. So there was some good underlying metrics. And he has, when he's had the opportunity, this past week, he's led the team in receiving yards, 78 receiving yards on 6 targets. So there's something, and that's kind of all you're just looking for in this offense is just something. Now, if it does go back to Andy Dalton, I do think that Adam Thielen honestly kind of becomes intriguing, and he's available in like 80% of leagues.
You want to see
So
him get traded. Like if you have Adam Thielen, or like if you're holding out the hope right now, you're hoping he's one of these veteran guys that gets moved before the trade deadline next week. Like that's
yeah,
what would be an ideal situation, especially if he gets back on the field this week. It shows that he's healthy. I think because all indications, even if Dalton comes back, it feels like at some point again, Bryce Young's going to see this thing out through the rest of the year. It just feels like that's going to be
well,
the case.
it'd be the smart, just give him the chance, and then I don't know.
It's like you got to see what you have heading into the draft next year, especially with all the quarterbacks.
I think
coming
that
out
they're
next
probably
year.
going to get a quarterback. If I had to take my guess,
I really do like Jalen Coker. That's a player Steve Smith was talking up to. Obviously, very familiar with the Panthers, but he was talking him up in the pre-draft process as well. And he hits on a lot of receivers. The guy's kind of a dog, and he just happens to make some really timely catches.
Hey,
so I think Jalen
a
Coker is a
good
guy
real life
deeper
wide
leagues, that's
receiver
good.
should be able to identify talent.
Yeah,
you would think, right? he has been able to. So yeah, he's somebody that, and especially in Dynasty, he should already be rostered. But I would double check Dynasty rosters. Like there was kind of talking a little bit off topic, but like this is kind of stuff that you should be doing in Dynasty. That I went through my roster and all my Dynasty leagues 2 weeks ago. The amount of Cedric Tillman that was available in Dynasty leagues before like the trade, after Amari Cooper got traded, Cedric Tillman and Jamari Trask, two guys who were wildly available and across all Dynasty. I picked those guys up every single spot they were available in every single Dynasty league, which was a lot. So see if Jalen Coker is available in your Dynasty league, because you'd be shocked at the amount of leagues that he might be available. And just pick up like all these guys, even like the third wide receiver here.
Mingo might be out there.
Yeah, like
he's not good,
pick him
but
up. Who the hell knows? People probably wrote off Cedric Tillman. Definitely did. And now look at him. So yeah, like, and all these guys in Dynasty is just, this creates an opportunity where there's opportunity there for somebody to produce. Whether or not they're actually do produce, I have no idea, but it's something that I would just pick up all these guys in Dynasty.
Yeah,
see what
Carolina,
happens.
Not a situation you want to have a whole lot of guys in, but in
redraft, I wouldn't.
No. 16 team leagues in Dynasty, I think that there's at least a little bit there.